started, let's talk about getting off of birth control. So, birth control is of course, a synthetic hormone, especially if you've done the birth control pill, the ring, anything that was used to suppress your hormones and to, control your cycle that was synthetic. So if it was any extra hormones put in, that was synthetic, no matter which one you used, whether it was the hormonal IUD, whatever, it doesn't matter. They do have different types of IUDs too. So they do have a copper IUD that can also cause some toxicity problems as well. I won't get into that in this particular talk, but we might revisit that later. So when you're on, synthetic birth control or, birth control hormones and things like that, it does cause your body to stop producing its own hormones, and you're basically, regulating things from the outside in. So, which means your body, when you decide to stop birth control, however long you've been on it, it will take a little bit of time to get things back regulated on your own. And you definitely need to support yourself when it comes to that. You definitely need to be making sure that you are eating foods that are going to support your hormones, and they're going to support detoxification as well, and mineralization. When you are on the hormones, your body, the mineralization changes. So when your body was doing things on its own, it was able to regulate those hormones and also maintain the mineral balance. So a lot changes whenever we start taking something that technically doesn't belong inside of our body. And that's, a lot of medications can cause mineral changes. For example, if someone's taking like a diuretic for high blood pressure, it's going to change their electrolyte balance, and they have to be more careful with their intake of minerals and salts and things like that, to make sure that they're getting back in range. So that's just an example. But when you do decide to get off of birth control, the changes that occur are drastic sometimes, and it can cause some emotional things to come up, as well as the physical things that come up, and deficiencies start to show up, and whatever else that was truly going on with you with your reproductive system before you got on birth control, or even if you decided to get on birth control because of your heavy cycles or PCOS or endometriosis or anything that you were diagnosed with, and you were given birth control to control that, it's going to come back. And because it's not a cure, it's not a true solution, it's just really used to get you through that time period so that you didn't have to worry about it. But it was never really a solution. So now, perhaps you're the late 20-year-old or the early 30-year-old where, you've been on birth control for most of your reproductive years, and now it's time to get off, and you're being met with these situations where you're trying to get your skin back together, right? You've gotten off birth control, your skin is acting up, or it might be clearing up for certain people, or your menstrual cycle is irregular, or it's back to what it was doing before. It's heavy, it's painful, it's all kinds of things going on. So you have to really support yourself, and that is really one thing that I focus on with the work that I do with acupuncture and Chinese medicine, is making sure that we're maintaining that balance and making sure that we're supporting all different levels, and also making sure the body is detoxifying properly, because a lot changes when you're on birth control. Even your perception of your partner can change. Like how you even selected that person, right? Because at the end of the day, we are hormonal beings, and a lot is controlled through our hormones. And that means like like a lot of our hormones, that cycle can start in our brain too. So it's like you're having a lot going up here in your heart and in your reproductive system when you take birth control. So it literally changes the chemistry. It changes how your pheromones and how you perceive pheromones. It changes your libido. It changes everything. It is truly birth control. Like, it's truly what it is. Like, it is simulating that you are pregnant every month, and that you don't need to get pregnant, so therefore you don't need to be looking for a partner. You don't need to be looking for a mate to have a child with. So therefore your brain chemistry is not out there seeking and looking for to truly attract. That's not saying that once you get out of birth control, everyone's gonna look at their partner differently, or their husband differently, right? That doesn't mean that. Some of y'all might. I mean, it has happened to people. I've heard of these stories, where people have, gotten off birth control, gotten their health back on track and all that stuff, and they're like, oh, I just, moving forward. Like, I'm not interested in him anymore. And so I mean, that's not to alarm anybody. It is what it is at the end of the day. Just being honest. Everybody, just as a side note, everybody should be with who they truly need to be with. And if that's what it took for you to figure that out, then that's just what it took. But going back to supporting yourself, you have to make sure that you are giving yourself the proper nutrition that it takes to do so. And that involves heavy nutrient dense foods, eating on time, making sure that you are truly nourishing yourself, getting on herbs, get with a healthcare practitioner that understands herbs and that can help you if you're not close enough to see me. Get with somebody that will support your detoxification pathways and will also take note of the mineralization that you need. Everybody's mineralization will be a little bit different, but there are some basic things you can do. When you start eating a variety of foods and nutrient-dense foods, you're already setting yourself up for mineralization. So one of our main cycles that we tend to run out of very quickly, especially due to the modern environment they're in, is magnesium. So making sure that you're getting in magnesium-rich foods, that's definitely going to help when it's time for your bleeding phase of your menstrual cycle. It's going to help with pain, and it's just going to help overall support you. Also, learning when you should be doing those heavy workouts versus some more soft or calming workouts. So you'll need to start learning how to really honor each phase of your cycle, because when you're on hormonal birth control, you're pretty much at this very steady state. When you're not on hormonal birth control and you're out here in the wild, you have a cycle, and each week is going to be just a little bit different. And you know, it's like, for example, and I've gone over this in previous videos, you'll have your, you come off your bleeding phase, right? And you're in follicular phase. Follicular phase is that first part of your cycle that starts when the day one of your bleeding. So day one, so let's just say you have a 4-day bleeding, 4 or 5 day bleeding. So about day 5, you're still in your follicular phase. Your follicular phase is where you're building up to that ovulatory phase. So that's when your ovaries are preparing to release an egg, to make things a little bit more simple and a quicker explanation. So you're feeling, once you get off that bleeding phase, you're like, oh wow, I feel really good. I feel, vibrant. You even feel sexy. You feel really good about yourself. You feel like you look really good. You look in the mirror and say, oh yeah, I look really good. Like, you just feel really good. And that's because you're supposed to feel that way. Because now is the time for you to start literally creating a new life. So now you're looking for that man to start creating with, right? So whether that's your husband, your partner, or you're creating new things, like maybe you're doing creative projects, and then you move into the ovulatory phase, and that's literally that's still a part of that. And once that ovulation day happens, then you literally, the next day is luteal phase. And once that happens, this is the point where a lot of women realize that, oh shit, I don't feel the same. My energy just dropped. That could be probably around day 18 for you, maybe. Sometimes it comes a little sooner for people, depending on what's going on and what their body is doing. And what is abnormal is when you drop down so low that you feel depressed and you feel like it's the end of the world. That is abnormal. And that's what that PMDD is, the postmenstrual depressive disorder. And I could be saying that all wrong, but just trying to remember off the top of my head. But that's PMDD, or that's symptoms of PMDD. So don't diagnose yourself just yet. If you've experienced that, just say that I'm having symptoms of that. We don't have to put names on ourselves. But sometimes once that primary shift, that shift happens from all those feel-good hormones that were supporting you to literally create new life. Now it's like that, now the egg has if you did not, and this is all based on if you did not conceive that particular cycle, now you're on the luteal phase. And luteal phase can be a bit rough for a lot of people. And it can be rough, or it can just be a time to slow down. Once you start really learning how to honor that and support yourself through yourself to do what you were doing the week before, because you were probably doing really good. You were like, wow, I was working out really hard, I had all this energy, blah blah blah. And now, right, this mid-cycle, like right after your cycle is done, you're just like, I mean, not your cycle, sorry, your ovulation is done, you're like, man, I feel like shit. I feel lazy. I want to eat a bunch of shit. I want to eat, you know. And you want sweets, you want fat stuff, you want, like, when I say fat stuff, you want like really rich foods, like fatty foods. So you have to make sure that, you know, whatever your body is calling for you to have, that you actually do it appropriately, because it is calling for you to have some of those richer things, but make sure that you're not getting into junk food. That would be the main thing. So that's what kind of happens, that's when people kind of go off course, is when they jump into the junk foods at that time, because they're craving all this stuff. Bring it back, do a little research, figure out what foods will support you during that phase. Then of course, you know, again, then you're back to your period, you're back to the bleeding phase. So, you know, when you have an actual real cycle, when I say real, when you're out here living in a wild, you're not taking birth control, when you're living naturally, you're going to experience those shifts. But when you are on birth control, it's very predictable. You have everything is predictable, everything is mostly straightforward. Now, some people still have a lot of, and not saying that birth control makes things easier, people still have a lot of issues when they are on birth control. But for, you know, a lot of individuals, they figure out that, you know, once they get off, that's some of the hardest months in that adjustment phase for them, because you have acne that can pop back up. That takes a little bit of time to get back on track. You have, you know, those emotional things that come up, and so it's just learning how to support that, learning how to honor each phase, actually tracking your cycle. Like, seriously, track your cycle, track it. Make sure you know what day you're on. Look at the count, look at your apps or whatever you put it on. If you write it down, most people put it on a little app now, like I do that. You can even do your basal body temperature. You know, that takes a little bit of time to actually get into practice with. But once you do that, that extra piece of information is can really serve you. And even tracking other signs of fertility signs will help you, whether you are trying to get pregnant or not. Then you start to learn your body. So other fertility signs would be tracking if you're, let's say, you know, what part of your cycle do your if this happens to you, do your breasts get tender, nipples get sore, things like that. Actual cervical fluid changes, like when you wipe, do you see what type of fluid do you see? You know, some people that might not understand the fluid, I'm talking about cervical mucus. Mucus just sounds like somebody's sick, so I just like to use fluid. So cervical fluid, looking at the different signs, that's going to help you. There are a couple of books I recommend that you get into. Taking Charge of Your Fertility is a really good book. And I think the other one is called The Fifth Vital Sign. Look those up and start studying. If you're really interested, if you really want to get into knowing more about your moon cycle, basically it's a moon cycle, because you know, technically we're you know, the normal, right, when, you know, textbook is 28 days. Doesn't always happen for everybody. Sometimes it can be 28 to 35-day cycles. Some people have a natural 35-day cycle, and they still can carry on their fertility, get pregnant, all that stuff. So as long, whatever cycle you have, as long as it's actually happening in a regular fashion and all those different processes are happening, then you say that's normal. So anyway, yeah, start looking up that stuff. I just encourage you to really pay attention to what your body is doing. That's the main thing, and that's really what helps your healthcare provider help you. When you know what's going on, when you have been tracking, you come to them with the information, say, hey, I've been noticing that this is happening at this time. Now we can start really breaking down and pinpointing things, and it just makes everybody's life easier.